has become a leading expert on AI, particularly as it relates to local government. And every month we have him on the first Wednesday of the month to give us an update and to kind of take us into new territory. And we are so glad to have you, Micah. Welcome.
Thanks, Mike. I don't know where we're leading each other to in terms of being a leading expert. So I think that's still to be determined if it's in the right direction or wrong direction. But hopefully we'll figure it out together. And excited to be with you all. I know I enjoy these Wednesday webinars. It gives me opportunity to learn a little bit more about AI and to kind of push my boundaries as well as just the interaction I've gained from other people on this call too. So one of the things I was thinking about over the last month is you know as you see people, people are putting their names and things in the chat. Feel free to reach out to these individuals. Feel free to reach out to folks at SGR, to Mike, and to Lisa, or to myself, or whoever. If you have questions about AI and how to do this, we want to be a resource for each other. No one has figured this out quite yet, so we're all still learning and figuring out how to do this in local government. So let's use each other as resources. I know I've personally benefited from being able to reach out to folks like yourself. And I'm sure there's individuals in the call right now that I've talked with and picked their brains on. So let's keep that momentum going. It's really important to continually learn about AI and how it can be applied to local government.
Yeah, that's a great point. Malcolm Gladwell has written the book, The Revenge of the Tipping Point, which is, a kind of a twist on one of his original books, The Tipping Point. And part of the Revenge of the Tipping Point is an examination of why did so many people in a certain region become so skillful at certain things. And
Mhm.
of course, as only Gladwell can tell a story, he traces that back. Well, I think there's a lesson to be learned about AI and local government there. That when as you're talking about, we share information, we communicate, we have someone like you that's sort of that scout for us, that's learning some things, bringing it back in. What we're doing is really potentially creating a seedbed for a lot of great learning and opportunity to make progress in. And I know today you're talking about something that I'm really interested in. It's a new topic, agentic AI, and how that relates to us. So, man, I want to throw it over to you and let you get started. And I hope everyone enjoys.
All right. Well, to start off with, I want to show you a little video. This is one that I created this video. Can't remember how long ago. This is a couple months ago, I believe. And I'll make sure I have the right screen on here to make sure. There we go. Perfect. So when ChatGPT first came out, we're going to dive into this ChatGPT tool. It's now called agent mode in ChatGPT, but originally it was called operator. And one of the core values I have in my career field in local government is eating ice cream, and I think it should be a core value for most of us is ice cream and desserts. So I did what I did here is I went on operator, and this is the operator working. This is not me working at all. It's going through and it's actually ordering DoorDash ice cream off of the Freddy's menu, which is a local, kind of a regional custard and steak burgers fast food chain here where I live. Now, this whole entire process, I edited it down to about a minute of video, but the whole entire process probably took about 30 minutes or so to do. But all I did was go into ChatGPT and say, hey, I want to get ice cream. And then, sure enough, here it is. It's at our door. And you can see here, we actually have ice cream delivered from ChatGPT. So just a quick video. I want to show you just to show what's actually possible with ChatGPT, kind of a fun way of using it. And then what I want to do now is kind of dive more into what is agentic AI. Hopefully that, whet your appetite. I hope not many, hopefully those of you who are near lunch hour have had a chance to eat. I hope I didn't make people too hungry, but I want to show you kind of the basics of what agentic AI is all about. I read recently that ChatGPT is now integrated with a tool called Stripe, which is your payment processor, very common payment processor, to be able to do shopping right there in ChatGPT. So I was playing around with it this morning and seeing if I could find a way to purchase a Christmas tree. We're in need of a Christmas tree this year. Our previous one has given up the ghost, and so we're in need of a new one. So I was trying to play around with that. But some of these new processes are coming through, and so it's an opportunity for us to learn more about what agentic AI is, how it works, how it's different from, say, the traditional AI, and maybe some applications for local government that you might find somewhat interesting. So first off, what is agentic AI? And so one of the things that I've learned about agentic AI and really to distinguish it from traditional AI models like ChatGPT or things like that. So basically, agentic AI acts autonomously to achieve a goal, right? Whereas traditional models are responding to a prompt. So it's a little more nuanced than that. And there's some core tenets of agentic AI. And those core tenets include autonomy, which is basically has the ability to independently operate without continuous human input. So for instance, in ChatGPT, if you put a prompt in there, you can put a prompt saying create a an AI policy, for example. But after that, if you want further improvement on that, or if you want to revise it, you have another prompt. You have to have continuous human input. With after that first prompt is put together, it'll create the output. There's nothing else beyond that. The other thing about agentic AI is what it does is it continuously learns and adjusts its own behavior based on new data and changing environments. So what we'll see here in a little bit in some of the videos is what it's able to do is actually operate a computer and operate, the ins and outs of a desktop, and then navigate that desktop, navigate things that might come up like pop-ups, different errors that might come up, different things like that. It's able to adjust its behavior based on new data and changing environments. The other thing too, it's really clear about or core to agentic AI is goal directedness, right? We talked about before, agentic AI acts autonomously to achieve goals. So it's looking to achieve a specific objective. And typically, depending on how robust the agent is, it doesn't stop until it achieves that goal or until it runs out of tokens or runs out of time. Whether that goal is predefined, like in a prompt, or emerges dynamically from experience, that adaptivity, it's looking to achieve that goal. The other thing that's very interesting about agentic AI is it's able to monitor and evaluate its own actions. And what it's able to do is see, okay, hey, when it makes a mistake or something like that, it's able actually to look at that and then to change course and to rectify that mistake there. So this is really, to me, these are kind of the core functions of agentic AI and what it does, so the core mechanisms. And really the difference here, if you think of it this way, is traditional models follow fixed instructions or respond only when queried or prompted, whereas agentic AIs act proactively and they decide when and how to act. And you can think through some of the implications, good and bad, of something like that. But that's kind of what agentic AI is looking to do. So some of the core mechanisms and architectures behind agentic AI, I'll go through this somewhat briefly, but just to kind of a basic idea of how this works. It really is looking at chain of thought reasoning, so multiple steps in a process and multi-step planning for this. And one of the things I thought was interesting, I was reading on this, is a tool called Baby AGI, is a tool here. Its framework explicitly plans a sequence of actions for a task. So rather than deciding one step at a time, it has a sequence of actions and then executes them iteratively. Meaning, instead of just going step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, it's looking at the entire thing and saying, okay, hey, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. Oh, wait a second, step 1 doesn't really fit here. Let's go back to step 1, fix what happened in step 1. And then step 4 is this, but it's dependent on step 3. We already fixed step 3, so you can jump ahead now to step 5. So it's looking at across the entire project as opposed to just doing one thing at a time. The other thing too is tool and API integration. So these tools can connect with external services and databases, which is somewhat helpful. So it can extend beyond the traditional AI capabilities. ChatGPT is training its own kind of model. And so with the ability for tool and API integration, we're seeing more and more ability to bring in our own data with this and actually learn from its own data. Other thing too is it's using short-term and long-term memory systems to retain context. So, think of long-term memory context of, okay, hey, we worked on this project before. Here's some of the errors we made. Here's some things that worked well. So able to learn that and take that into its next interaction and able to learn from past experiences for better performance in the future. Other thing too, it has a recursive feedback loops. Basically, it's able to learn and continuously self-improve. It's based also on that memory system and adapt through ongoing feedback. So one of the key things I'm learning is that human input, while it doesn't depend on human input, it's not necessary for the agentic AI to quote unquote work. For it to work well, there is, you do want to have human input on that. And then there's also things like multiple agent or single agent architectures, right? So basically a team of agents that are working together and working off of each other versus one. So you have a complex task, maybe something within a budget tool, and you want to bring in data from different sources. It can do that. So you can kind of all play together that way. The other thing too that is somewhat interesting is some of the levels of agency in AI systems. So you think of, agentic AI is kind of a broad brush, topic, but just the different buckets these could fall under is you have basic agency, which includes kind of robotic process information or automation and rule-based chatbots. So these kind of follow fixed instructions without learning. So basically think of this as, hey, you have a defined task it's doing, and it's doing that one exact task, and it's not going really anywhere beyond that. So we're not learning a whole lot beyond that. Then you have agentic AI, which is systems with autonomy, memory, and multi-step planning, enabling adaptive. It's goal-driven behavior. These are a little more, the governor on these ones is not as pronounced. And then you also have autonomous agency. This is in the theoretical stage. You might have heard of this in terms of something called AGI or terms like that. And so this is a future concept that is basically self-reflective and capable of generating its own values and goals beyond human input. And of course, there's implications, good and bad, about any of these things, but I want to let you know kind of what's out there and where AI is heading towards. That way, when you hear terms like agentic AI or things that, or AGI even, you can kind of take a step back and say, okay, are we talking about basic agency, which is basically just following fixed instructions without learning? Talking about agentic AI, or are we talking about autonomous agency? Because those, obviously, each of those different categories have very different types of use cases and different types of risk and benefits that are associated with all those different use cases as well. So some of the key differences, I find this to be helpful, some of the key differences between generative AI, and again, generative AI, think ChatGPT, think Claude, think of when you're creating a draft of a memo, think of when you want to take your create a cartoon image of your dog or something like that on a Nano Banana and Gemini or something like that. So it's helpful to kind of understand how this works together and the differences. So on generative AI, the primary focus is content creation, right? And agentic AI, the primary focus is action and decision making. So it's acting on behalf of the user, on behalf of the individual, on behalf of the organization, and it's taking action and making decisions to achieve that action. The other thing too is an autonomy. So generative AI has a very low autonomy. It's basically just responding to prompts. So if I say in ChatGPT, create an image of a city hall, that's exactly what it'll create. On agentic AI, if I say, create an image of a city hall, it's going to do something very similar, but it's actually going to go through and say, okay, hey, this is the goal. How do I meet this goal? And it's going to look at different pictures of city halls and try to get all the information right there. So it has a high degree of independence. The other thing too is integration. So standalone APIs or systems, you can connect APIs and things like that to ChatGPT. You might find if you have people who are maybe vendors who are coming to you and talking about AI systems and AI integration. You might find out that, hey, we used a ChatGPT 5 model, or we use a Claude Sonnet model as our LLM or large language model input for a response there. So it's going to be connected to APIs, but basically a standalone system where agentic AI is more modular and has multiple agents. Workflow, again, is more of a single step. Now, if you've been in our webinars for any length of time, you'll know that there are some things you can do to have a longer multi-step workflow or multi-step prompt. But at the end of the day, it's basically taking that entire prompt as one step. And while you can basically have it go through multiple steps through a chain of thought reasoning, at the end of the day, it's still looking at it as a one step, where an agentic AI, again, that goal-oriented nature, it's saying, okay, here's your goal. How do I get to that goal to achieve what you want to do? Learning, it's more of a static post-training learning. And in agentic AI, it's that continuous improvement. How do I make this better over the course of time? So some of the ways that I think we could possibly learn this and what could be applicable to local government, and we'll walk through a couple of examples that hopefully is of interest, and hopefully you can kind of see some parallels to your world and what you're working on in your local city, is things like HR transformation. So you could automate some of the onboarding processes, benefits administration, employee support, things like that, and enable staff to focus more on strategic priorities and more of the personnel relationship side of things. So there's some potential there. Another thing too is within customer service, so handling complete citizen interactions autonomously, enhancing responsiveness, reducing wait times, things like that. Again, there are pro and cons to any of these different types of use cases, and you want to make sure it really fits what's best for you and your city and what's best for the outcome you're trying to drive. Other things too, exploration and training. So inspired by projects like Voyager. So there's a tool called Voyager that basically was able to play the game of Minecraft and learn how to play that on its own. Was a pretty interesting use case there. Not necessarily applicable to local government, unless your local government has a Minecraft Parks and Rec department or something like that. But you can kind of see the idea of it, right? The ability to continuously learn environments and autonomously learn skills can be helpful, especially if you're thinking of things like, say, emergency management and developing, maybe a tabletop exercise and running through the scenarios of a tabletop exercise with different types of injects and things like that can be somewhat useful. So different, there's always, like with any AI system, we are just starting to kind of scratch the surface of agentic AI. And so the use cases are really just how creative can we be, and what are the risks and rewards of those different use cases, and understanding what we're gaining as well as what we're giving up with different types of agentic AI solutions. So some best practices, and I want to give a shout out to a buddy of mine named Robert Hyatt. He recently had something he posted on LinkedIn, I think it's on his newsletter, where he walked through some of the frameworks for agentic AI. I found it to be really useful. If you want to get a copy of that or get a link to that, let me know. Happy to share that with y'all. I found that very, very helpful. But some of the basic idea is you want to build the architecture first. You want to, basically understand how this fits within your overall architecture within your city. And then you want to integrate watchdog processes and audit logs to ensure there's transparency and accountability, that the decisions being made and decisions being driven are that there's a level of accountability, and you know how it's working and how you're getting there to that decision, that you agree with that decision. The other thing too is on the risk modeling. You want to anticipate and prevent failure, such as prompt injection and unintended AI behaviors. There's a famous case. It wasn't necessarily agentic AI, but there was a case. I don't remember where this was exactly, but a local, not local to me, but a local car dealership had put together a chatbot for its customer service. So for a local car dealership to go on there, look for a car or whatever. And a guy had convinced the chatbot to sell a pretty expensive truck for $1, and it convinced them, and then it was trying to get the dealership to honor that agreement that he had made with the chatbot. I don't remember exactly if they honored the agreement or not. I would tend to think that probably not, they didn't honor it, but you can see that without risk modeling and understanding, okay, where can prompt injection lead us astray, that can be an issue. So making sure that before these are deployed live, making sure you really try to test them out as much as possible and really try to break them before you launch them live is super, super important, that we understand what the what the different implications are. Of course, continuous compliance. So there's different things in different models. The EU has some great models for continuous compliance and things like that. I know the US is still developing some of those things like that. So it's important to kind of know what's out there and to know how to monitor that AI life cycle. The other thing too, I would say as well, is when you're doing a deployment plan, if you're looking at something like this, I would say start small. Start with maybe a repetitive, low risk task that you can use to kind of build confidence and validate the benefits of. Start with a small thing, and then do some pilot testing. Look at something over a controlled period of time, a couple of weeks at the minimum, to kind of assess performance and then gather feedback. Did it work? What was the pros? What was the cons? But starting with a very small, low risk use case and then testing out can be really important. And then measure those outcomes, right? Have an ability to track those metrics. How much time do we actually save? Did we actually have an improvement? And let's qualify those improvements. Was there any error reduction, anything like that, and different things we did with the focus on repetitive tasks? Was there error reduction that we saw on using the agentic model versus the traditional human model? And what are the implications of that? And is that something that we agree with, that we don't agree with? How did that fit within our entire ecosystem is super, super important. So some of the tools that are out there right now for agentic AI, we're not going to go through all of these, obviously, but some of them that are out there that you might want to explore further is Crew AI, which is a collaborative framework for orchestrating autonomous agents. Microsoft Copilot Studio has some integrated AI tools that are focused on productivity and automation. So Microsoft Copilot is getting more into the agentic AI space as well. I mentioned Baby AGI before too. Auto GPT is another one that you can do, as well as Agent GPT. These are some kind of easy to use. Basically, you put a prompt in there and you can have it, achieve, have it go out and achieve a goal or a direction. These are pretty easy ones to kind of explore and kind of test out the waters with. I would explore something that's maybe really, again, low risk. Try something out first, maybe something even just personally to see how it works. That way we're not jeopardizing any type of municipal data on its own without understanding how the system works. And then other one is Hugging Face has an open computer agent as well too, which has an extensible ecosystem for AI development. So with all that, whenever I look at a new tool, one thing I like to do is kind of explore first personally. Hey, how would I use this? What would it look like for my own personal use? And then from there, once I kind of figure out how it is used and I can use my own data, my own information, things like that, then I kind of explore more on, okay, well, how this work in a local government, how this work for me and my role as a deputy city manager. What would that look like that way? So that can be a way to kind of piece together, again, low risk, start really small, and then go from there. So I'm going to pause my share right here because I want to show you all a couple of videos of how this works, how this is put together, what it looks like when you're using agentic AI, and a couple of use cases here. So let me pull open a couple of videos here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull open don't mind my internet connection here as we pull this open. I'm going to tilt my screen down so I can see the bottom of my screen here. Go. Okay. So let me go back and let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm gonna play the video and I'll narrate the video. This entire process of I should probably click resume. Let's try that now. Hopefully now that works. So this entire process, again, I edited the video down just because the entire process took probably about an hour to do this of actual time of the agent working behind the scenes. So I edited this down to about 12 minutes. Kind of took some lag time out. That way we're not here for a 3-hour webinar session. So on this one, what I'm asking it to do is I asked it to go and find business license fees in different cities. I want to compare ones that are similar to kind of a mid-sized city, and I wanted to compare different business cases, or business license fees, and put that into a spreadsheet for me. So I'll play this here. You can kind of see what's doing here. So it's looking for the information for business application renewal fees, and it's doing this all on its own. It's looking at different websites, reading it, and going through and saying, okay, hey, how do I find the right line? It's kind of parsing that data out, looking at fee schedule for the city of Caldwell, Idaho. And it's going through and looking at all the various different fee information. So, put in PZ FY25 fees, Caldwell, business license application fee, city of renewal fee, business license, city of Lodi. So it's looking for all these different types of fees and trying to find, okay, how do I find the various types of fees that are out there? I'm going to fast forward just a little bit here so you can see it's basically the same thing for a while, looking at all the different fees. Okay, looking at city of Hobbs, keeps going, city of Sumter, city of Mishawaka, Indiana, which is a fun name to say. Been there a couple times. City of Fitchburg. And again, it's gathering all this various information. So it keeps going here. Business license rate schedule for Danville, Virginia. And we can keep going down the list. City of Cheyenne, I think this is what it is. Keep going. Schedule fee. Beaverton, Oregon. Again, it's gathering all this information for me. And the idea of it, as far as I can tell, the idea of the benefit of it is obviously you wouldn't be necessarily watching it happen as you're doing it. You'd be maybe working another project while this is going and find this information for you. Now it's grabbing Battle Creek, Michigan, which I believe is the home of Kellogg's cereal. If you're a cereal fan there, again, go back to Hobbs, and let's skip ahead down here. So based on that, what we have here is, okay, now I have it in its terminal, okay, I have all the information it needs, and it's thinking through, okay, from here, what do I do? How do I put this into some kind of a table or spreadsheet that we actually can use and have a good output there? So it's going through, looking at all the information, and it has compiled it together. And then what it did from here is I'm gonna pause my screen share again, and I'll show you what the output looks like. So let me go and grab this real quick here and show what the output looks like. And I'll pull this back over here to this other screen. That way I can share the screen. What I asked it to do too, I'll show you the original prompt. That way you can kind of see what this looks like and how that worked. So here's the original prompt I had. I said, okay, you are a deputy city manager. Complete these steps in order and produce 2 outputs. 1, a spreadsheet file, and 2, a 1-page memo. Show your sources for any external data. So step 1, collect pure data. Find the latest business license fee schedules, application renewal, late fee from 3 US cities with populations between 40,000 and 60,000. Record the fee amounts exactly as posted. Step 2, build the spreadsheet. Step 3, draft a memo. Write a 1-page internal memo to the city manager. Include executive summary. Keep the tone professional and data-driven. Then deliver, provide both outputs together. So here we go. This is it. You can see this is basically what we just watched a second ago. And it took a while to do, but you can see it was going through and looking at all these different things. There's Danville, which you saw before. And then here it is. Here is my spreadsheet. It outputted for me. And so I can take a look at this. And here's the spreadsheet, application fee, renewal fee, difference here, difference here. And there is the spreadsheet for, it gave me 4 different cities and inferred pretty accurately that I work in the city of Maricopa. So it gave me that one to kind of see the difference. And it's comparing that. And then it also went here and it said, okay, here's the memo. And here's in the memo actually gave me the sources as well too. So that way, when I have this memo, we can have hyperlinks directly to the source. So if I click on here, here's Hobbs, New Mexico. And here's the business regulation or registration renewal information right there. Again, here's the fee, put the chart right in there for me, implications, recommendations, and there you have it. So within, again, about an hour of time, it put that whole thing together for us. That way we can see what we can do. So let me show you another one. Again, I'm gonna pause my screen share 1 second while I grab this other video. Another one, a little more complicated, but to me, it was a pretty interesting use case for how you can use agentic AI to do some really, really interesting things within local government. Again, bear with my internet connection here while I pull this open. And again, I shortened it, again, the same idea. This one took I don't remember exactly how long it took. This one probably took about an hour to do. And yeah, it took about an hour to do as well too. I shortened this down as well, just like the other one. So I also sped up the video. So I shortened some of the things down, and then it's also going at 2 speed. So just so you're aware, it does take some time for that. Let me go back, and I'm going to share my screen once more. Here we go. And hopefully now we all can see this. Okay, so here we go. Let me show you this one. So on this one, I found a document which was a CIP request form, and I'm going to butcher the name of the town. I apologize to anyone in the great state of Massachusetts. I don't know if it's pronounced Cohasset. I think that's how it's pronounced, but something like that. Cohasset, Massachusetts. There is a document. There was a capital request budget request form that they had on their website. Able to grab that, and I wanted to do is I wanted to go and fill this document out and submit a request for pickleball courts. So here is the prompt I'm putting together. So I asked for 4 pickleball courts, asked it to research and look at all the information. So look at the form and then do the appropriate research for this project. Be sure to include quotes, fill out the form, and put that and the supplemental data together for this project. So here we go. It's going to do that, and we'll get started here in a quick second. I clicked on agent mode. That's the agent for, it used to be called ChatGPT operator. Now it's called agent mode. And it's going through, and it also knows, I think it's kind of fun, is it knew that my name was Micah. ChatGPT and I have talked for quite a while now, so it actually remembers my name, which is pretty fun. So it's going through, it's going to open this form. You'll see it's opening a tool called LibreOffice, which is basically a free open source word processor. And you can see here is the form. This is exactly the form that I was looking at on my desktop. So it's going through and it's looking at all the various things it needs to do. At first, it wasn't able to use the scroll button. So in terms of like that continuous improvement idea, how does it learn from mistakes? And it found out that if it used the page down button on its virtual keyboard, that got the information it needed. So it's going through reviewing the document. And I'll skip ahead a little bit here so you can see, and it's going through and finding out, okay, what's the cost of building and maintaining a pickleball court? So it's going through, looking at all these different things. What does that look like? It's going further here and saying, okay, opening the task, has some information it's going to put in here, pickleballs in South Suburban Parks and Recreation. Going a step further here, practical pointers. It's grabbing some information on maybe the potential health benefits of playing pickleball, some pickleball statistics, possibly looking at for potential funding sources. Okay, I'll skip ahead here. It's going to go through, and this one was asked to generate, have a diagram of the pickleball courts. It's going to go through and create an image or a diagram of the pickleball courts. Did that. It's putting this whole thing together. It's going through and again, generating the diagram. Some things here take longer than expected, but I think it's because it's working iteratively. It's not always walking through in sequential steps. It's working through iteratively to say, okay, how do I do this as quickly as possible? Realized it opened the wrong document. So it's going back open to see, okay, I opened the wrong document. How do I find the right one? And there it is, found its correct document here. Going to open it up. So click the open button, and here again, the information, and it'll start actually going through and putting in the information on this form. So it's going to look at this town meeting, August date, put a date in there. And it's entering all this information it already has preloaded in its terminal based on the research it did. So it's going to go through, realize it made an error on the project information. There we go. Now put in the project name, department name, Parks and Recreation, put me as the requester. it says that we'll provide the email and phone number at a later time, and so we'll put that information in there. And then what I'll do here is I'll skip ahead just a little bit here, so you can see it's actually putting in the actual text of the information for this spreadsheet. It's filling this whole thing in here for me step by step, again, based on the information it pulled together, based on information it gathered from its own research. So let me go ahead and skip ahead just a little bit. I'll skip ahead here. It's filling in the cost. The estimated cost of the project total is about $165,000 for that. Also went through and put in maintenance costs, which estimate about $4,000 per year. Again, skip ahead here. It's going through here, entering the numbers in. Notice some ambiguity there, so it's trying to fix that process there. Again, going through, updating the information more, and then goes through and defines the need and enters all the various information. Again, based on the research it did, entering all the information here into this spreadsheet. So again, as define the need, asked if there's any requirements from a local, state, or federal laws. Said, nope, it's a pickleball court. There's no real regulation for constructing pickleball courts from a federal or state perspective, so no need there. Is the project or expenditure critical to the function? It says yes, because we're looking to promote health and wellness and community engagement within a parks and recreation. And so that's why we think it is. And again, putting all this information together based on the information it researched and gathered all together. So here it is. It's finalizing this entire thing. The output here means that we are finished with this project and it is completely done. And then let me back up here a quick second to show you this. I'll show you what it looked like when I actually grabbed the finalized product. So this is finishing up here, had the whole thing done. You'll see pretty soon here, this little play button will stop, and then we can scroll down and see the actual document it provided for me. We'll wait a second here. It's crafting the finalized version, almost done. Here it is, the final output is there. Scroll on here, here's the diagram it did. And then I open this document and I have this entire thing filled out for me. Maybe a couple edits I want to do here and there, formatting or things like that, but the entire document is put together for me from scratch using Agentic AI. And I'm able to have it do the research, have it information and things like that, which is super, to me, super helpful and super easy way to do that. Other thing you can do, I'm going to show you this one here. So if I say on this task right here, for example, on this thing right here, one of the things you can do is you can actually have it scheduled. So you can go in here and say you have a reoccurring thing you need to do each time. You actually go in here and you can schedule this on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. The one thing I would say is you typically have, let me see here, if I close this off and let me grab agent mode again, it should tell me on here somewhere. So I don't remember the total number you have. I think it's like 30 or 40 total agent mode interactions you can do within a month if you're on the plus, which is that $20 per month plan. I think you get a ridiculous number if you're on the pro plan and you're willing to pay $200 a month for ChatGPT. I don't believe this is part of the free plan. I could be wrong, but I believe it's part of the free plan right now. But you get about 40 or so prompts. So if you're scheduling things like that, just keep that in mind in the back of your head. If you want to have a reoccurring task, if you do one every single day, obviously you're going to use 30 of your agent mode prompts right off the bat on that thing. So it doesn't really matter it doesn't really fault you or do anything in terms of if it's a simple task or if it's a more complicated task, it still counts as an agent mode interaction. So just know that that's part of the issue there too as well. So hopefully it's somewhat of use there. Again, what you want to do too when you're building an agent mode prompt, one of the things I like to do is when I'm building the actual prompt for it. So if I say something like, I want to build a prompt for agent mode that allows me to get a weekly news digest for the city of Mansfield, Texas. And then it creates a memo for my city manager, or my city manager team, that way they can keep up to date on any emerging issues or topics. Please create the prompt for agent mode. I like doing it this way because that way I know I have a pretty robust prompt for it. So it'll think through, and here is the prompt for agent mode. I'll think this through. And so we can do this is, here's the prompt, copy this, grab a new chat, paste this in here. I'm going to edit a little things here. So search for latest news releases. There we go. Go here to agent mode, sources, and then from here, hit enter, and you'll see it start to work right away. We're not going to finish this entire. We won't let it sit for. It'll take a while to kind of find this information, so we won't do that part of it. But you can see right here, it's going through and starting to gather the information. And how do I find this information? How do I do that? You can also look here. You can see the activity. So you can see, all right, here's what it's doing. And if you want to, on your desktop view, for example, you can go here and you can take over the browser. So you can select take over browser, and you're going to be entered into here. And so if I go here and I go to, let's say I type in google.com, and I say City of Mansfield, Texas news. I'll click that I'm not a robot, even though kind of am right now, I guess, but it's fine. Here it is. Here's the news page right here. I'll click on news once it's done there, and I'll say finish controlling. And now it's going to look over this again and say, okay, hey, what did you just do? How did you get there? And it's going to learn from the input and the interaction I had right there. So you can kind of test it out, see what it looks like. You can interact with it. If you see something, hey, that's not the right way. What I have found though is to be a little bit patient with it, because I have noticed that sometimes it's going down a certain route. I'm like, what is it doing? And then later on, it shows that it actually learned from what it did. So thanks to the update. There have been any significant changes, let me know. Otherwise, you proceed with compiling the latest news and draft the memo as planned. Gives me a couple seconds. I can input what I did there if I want to. Can I explain? Or I just click continue, and I'll go back to the desktop and set up its virtual desktop again and start looking for Mansfield, Texas news. So let me pause and stop my screen share there and see. I noticed there's a number of bubbles on the chat. So Mike, any questions from our wonderful webinar participants? Any questions from your end on agent mode and agentic AI for local government?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to be able to see if I could get an agentic robot to get the city to agree to put my property taxes at $1. I don't need a car, but and see what that is. It's very, very interesting. I think one of the questions that I have is, somebody asked kind of like, is this no use or low use programming? How skilled does a person need to be in this to be able to kind of do what we've watched you do? I mean, you're very comfortable with it, but how would you say the average person working for a local government could learn to do that? Is it just trial and error?
It's trial and error, and I would say if the barrier of entry is low enough for a deputy city manager to figure out, then I think everyone else should be in a great position. And you can see, what we did there, right? We're basically just taking what we've learned about prompting and how to create prompts, or even using ChatGPT to create the prompt for us, and then putting that into the system. So when in doubt, if you have an idea of something you want to do, just say, hey, here's my idea. I don't know how to prompt you, ChatGPT. Here's the idea. Can you help me create a prompt for this? And it'll do that for you. So the barrier to entry is pretty low, and just playing around with it and kind of experimenting, I think is a great first step. Experiment something that you want to learn more about or want to do, right? See if it can buy you a Christmas tree or something like that, and then see what happens there.
I'd be afraid a whole busload of Christmas trees would be coming to the house.
My
So
wife would not be upset if that happened. I can guarantee that. She'd be okay with that. But yeah.
my kids would be saying, "Great, now let's sell them and mark them up and sell them."
Yeah.
Okay, where is this going? Like if you were to put your I'm looking into the future hat on, when I think about how much progress OpenAI has made since this kind of burst on the scene, coming up on 3 years ago, I think. Where are we going to be 2 years from now related to this in local government, in your opinion?
Well, I think some of the things you might find is that we're going to find more vendors who are selling agentic AI solutions to local government. And so you almost think of it as vendors, instead of just selling software as a service, they might be selling projects as a service kind of idea. And so the idea of it would be, hey, let me come in and I'll instead of just selling a, a CRM software, it'll say, hey, let me solve your CRM issue through this project. And so you might see more project as a software type of solutions that might come in. And then from there, hopefully there's some discussion in local government about, okay, is this something that we need to outsource to an external vendor, or is this something we can build in house? And what are the implications of each to see what's the best and appropriate way of doing this? So I think you're going to see more and more project-based solutions as opposed to just software-based solutions. I think is probably where it's going. But my crystal ball broke a long time ago, Mike. So I'm still trying to find the pieces of that. I've asked ChatGPT to help me, but it's been of no help so far.
No one tell. Well, it made me think about when a city purchases a new uh, software program related to, let's say, HR.
Mm-hmm.
There's training for what that's going to look like, and everybody trained on that particular piece of software. It almost makes me wonder, are we headed to a day where cities are going to bring in supervisors all the way through department heads and CMO and say, we're doing training on how to use generative AI and agentic AI and whatever's next,
Mm-hmm.
because we can't we can't just rely on vendors. We need your creativity and your ingenuity to make this all help us to be on the cutting edge with that. Do you see it
Yeah,
timeline?
I think for sure. And I would say maybe even a step further too, where leadership development might shift from not only managing people and managing um, the operations and logistics of a team or a project to now learning how, as a supervisor, as a manager, how do you manage um, AI agents as part of your workforce? And what does that look like, and how do you do that? And so the management of not only people skills but also managing AI agents, I think is I don't want to say the next 2 years thing. It might be kind of aggressive, but certainly the next 30 years might be something that comes about, is AI agents that are embedded into the a traditional municipal workforce.
Right. And we may want to put our heads in the sand and say no, no, but that just puts us behind
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to, the more we get on the edge and can learn how to use it, the more say we get over that. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's really fascinating, and I've really enjoyed this presentation. Appreciate it so much, Mike. I hope that you have benefited from it, and you can get a copy of this if you registered for it, or you people can even watch it on our YouTube channel, even if they didn't. So lots to digest and learn from there. And thank you, Micah, for a lot of hard work and a great presentation.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's here. It's one of those things we had to learn how to use it. And like you said, it's we can't bury our head in the sand at all with a topic as transformative as this.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely transformative. There's no question about it. And it seems like every month it becomes a little more accelerated with that. So
Yeah,
so great. Well, thanks again. Thanks to Lisa Shook and all of your work behind the scenes to make this possible, and to all of you that have joined us. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you down the road.